Good evening. We're just going to go ahead and start. Please turn to the very first page of the booklet. If you're so inclined, you can join us in the opening chant. If not, you can just mentally follow. So what these recitations at the opening is doing, in part, is to set the context, to set the context for what we're practicing. So this is related to what I talked about last week about having the view. We tend to kind of dismiss what's called the view. That really reflects our materialist-based general kind of mainstream culture. What I mean by that is we trust, Nathan, there's all kinds of strange things going on. Well, too late.
There was something happening. It was a strange thing.
So what I mean by a materialist-based culture is that we basically trust that if it is a bodily experience, a physical, embodied, as much as I was talking about embodiment last week, but the difference here is that we trust, like if the body feels something, then we feel that that's it. It's universally true for everyone. No matter if somebody experienced something that is like, if I experience something that's like that, then that is true. And then we feel that interpretation is secondary. Yeah? I'm not here to persuade you that it's otherwise. My job is not that. You have to decide if that's true or not. But my job is to represent what the Buddha taught. What the Buddha taught is that the view makes a big difference. In fact, the view makes all the difference. So what that means is the Buddha could be using or recommending a particular technique that likewise someone else, someplace else also recommends, but the purposes are different. And therefore the quality that arises also becomes different. And so if you practice this, so to put it in concrete terms, if you practice this, right, merely, right, to make you a better day trader, so then the result that arises corresponds with that. Yeah. Well, maybe that's all you need from this. Fine. We don't have a problem with that. I'm not here to police, what kind of results is right for you or wrong for you. But it is sort of my job, to say, well, that's not what the Buddha taught this for. The Buddha taught this for these other reasons, using this particular set of techniques or approaches to train the mind. And so these recitations at the beginning set the context. Why are we doing this? For what purpose? So that's why we always have these opening recitations. And then at the end, to kind of complete we come one full circle. If you notice, when we get to the end, when we do the dedication, we basically come one full circle right back to where we began. Because it's the same. At the end, we call it dedicating. Dedicating the fruits of our practice, dedicating the fruits of what we have learned. Towards what? Towards the same goals, the same view as we set at the beginning. O Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. O Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. O Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. You protector, who possesses great kindness, all-knowing teacher, perfect one, basis of oceans of merit and qualities, homage to you, the Tathagata, purity, the cause of freedom from attachments, virtue that liberates from the lower realms. This alone is the sublime ultimate reality. Homage to the Dharma that pacifies, having been liberated. You show the path to liberation, devoted to the moral precepts. You are a field of perfect qualities. Homage to you, the sublime Sangha. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. Now you can put the text aside and try to put it on the cushion, one corner of it. Having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building, now sit down, folding legs crosswise, holding body upright, establishing mindfulness to the fore, always mindful, breathe in, mindful, breathe out. Sitting legs crosswise is to find a position of sitting where your body is stable, balanced, and at ease. So whether you literally sit on the floor with legs crossed or sit on the chair, be sure that your body weight is equally distributed. Be sure that you're not putting strain on your back. Ideally, your pelvic floor and your two legs, folded or seated, form a triangle of support for the rest of your body. Especially if you're seated in the zafus, those sitting cushions, know that they're designed to offer specifically support to your lower back. So you're not sitting on the entire cushion, but rather that cushion should be tucked under your pelvic floor. Sitting in this way, in a balanced, stable, and unmoving way, promotes stability of mind. While the other point of holding the body upright promotes clarity of mind. So we want to sit with our back upright. Initially, you might even want to pull yourself upwards as if there is a string attached to the top of your head that is pulling you upwards, applying some pressure, some tension, and then release that tension. Do that a few times. Open your chest, pull back a little, and then relax. And do that a few times. Then without any particular strong effort to pay attention to your breath, first as a preliminary, come back to the body. Return to the body. Bring your mind, your attention back into this body. Unlike the individuals who heard the Buddha teach 2,600 years ago, most of us now live in such a way that we are disembodied. Our minds are busy all over the place and disconnected from the body. In a way, it's because modern technology that brings security to the body has afforded us to not be so present with the body. And that comes with the price, this so-called freedom, this so-called security. It's security and freedom from one point of view, but something is lost, which is basically when the mind is all over the place, it is not in tune with the body, and the body is unhappy. So when the subtle elements in the body are disrupted, they manifest in mental, emotional disruptions. When the subtle wind elements in the body is upset, is disturbed, or diminished, then our minds flutter, move, swing from one place to another, erratically. Like winds blowing in all directions. We are not at rest. When the subtle elements of the body related to fire is disturbed, diminished, or excessive, then we become agitated very easily. Fired up for no particular reason, or for the smallest reasons. Or on the other hand, perhaps completely no vitality, not interested, lost interest in a negative way. And it translates to not having any ability to be present, to be focused. When the subtle element of water is diminished or disturbed or excessive, then on the mental emotional end of the spectrum, the mind becomes rigid because it has lost its suppleness. On the one hand, it becomes rigid, and that which is rigid actually breaks also very easily, falls apart easily. And when the subtle elements of earth, of solidity, of firmness, is weakened, scattered, or excessive, then the range of emotions are dullness, heaviness. So these are general tones of feelings and emotions that are related to the bodily elements. And when mind and body are running in different directions, all kinds of disturbances on the physical level, on the mental, emotional level, they are all disrupted. And this is where dis-ease, or dukkha, as the Buddha calls it, takes over. Right now, consider this time a gift that you're giving yourself, a gift that you're giving your body and mind to come and meet each other, to come and become intimate and kind to each other, paying attention to each other. Consider this time a time that you're giving yourself to develop skillful self-care. For it's only when we know how to skillfully care for ourselves that we can then skillfully care for others. So take time now to experience embodiment, to experience the body as the body, to know the body as body in and of itself. The Buddha particularly emphasized the top-down central axis of the body as the place to start. So you can imagine perhaps even a soft sweeping from the very top of your head down to the base of your pelvic floor. This gentle, warm sweep of energy as you breathe in all the way down to the very bottom of the pelvic floor, and then again and again and again. But mainly approach this as doing nothing. Approach this as getting out of the way so that body and mind can look at each other and can be at ease with each other. Notice the distractions that tends to come up. Notice the distractions that tell you, oh, now you need to do this, now you need to do that. Now you need to think of this, now you need to think of that. Now you need to do this. And gently but firmly say later. As you become more and more attuned to the lack of distractions, you will even begin to see how every single attempt to fidget is part of this distraction that arises. But know that you can develop strength to say no. Again, not in a punishing and unkind way of saying no, but simply understanding that to give in is to feed a habit pattern that will continue to derail you. That will continue to feed those patterns that have thus far only caused dis-ease, dukkha, dissatisfaction. Thought I'd better break the meditation in case somebody accidentally gets enlightened. Good evening. Welcome back to the second of these 4 Thursdays that we are going to spend together learning this particular approach to training the mind, training the heart, which is the 16 stages of mindfulness of breathing. And through these 16 stages, we look at what I would call the technical name is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But they are basically 4 windows that the Buddha called attention to. And said that when we look closely at what is this, who is here, who am I, right? when we look at this through these four windows, these four frames of references, then liberating insight, knowledge that frees us, can arise. So these four windows are, if you look at your the booklet here, they are on page 5, body, then feelings, on page 6, on page 7, mind, and on page 8, phenomena. Body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. What you see here in these four frames or four references or four contexts for looking at what is here, basically the Buddha started with that which is easiest to work with. That is the most obvious. And that which the easiest and that which the most obvious begins with this body. Then the next two relates to what we might call this mind. Then the last one covers all of body and mind, but seen in, you could say, the most impersonal terms. Because phenomena are basically these basic building blocks of reality, of experiences, of identity. And so it's almost like you could say, looking at the elements chart. Except that this element chart is not just material substance, right? The scientific elements chart charts out, right? Material substances. What's the number now? 100 and something? I went to school to learn these things in ancient times. There were maybe, I don't know, what, 80, 90? This phenomena, these elements chart that the Buddha pointed to, are actually mostly mental elements, but laid out in impersonal terms. So that's the most subtle and the least easy of these four to kind of directly experience. So the Buddha starts first with what's easiest to experience. Not only that the body is the easiest to experience, but for this work of giving rise to insight and understanding and clarity, right, and not to be clouded anymore, which is principally, pertains to the mind. For this work, the Buddha really understood that it cannot be fruitfully done without first bringing the body to a good place, to a happy place. To skillfully bring the body to a place where, it says here, the bodily formations are calmed, are at ease. So what is implied there then is, right now, our body is not in the state of ease. Now, why is the body not in the state of ease? Because the mind is busy, too busy. If the mind was too busy during the Buddha's time, 2,600 years ago, it has accelerated. Just within one generation, I can tell you it has accelerated so much. So now we have way, way more avenues to make the mind busy. But through these 16 stages, whether you engage all 16 stages, in like one day or one session of meditation, or You begin from the beginning and say, for a while I'm just going to focus on the first few. That one, I think, it varies from person to person. But as I pointed out last time, in the approach that is taught by the head of the order that I'm a part of, His Holiness the Dugong Kyabgun, in the approach that he has been teaching, these 16 stages, he considers the 16 stages as a complete set. But then, of course, it's also over the course of 10 days that he introduces the 16 stages. And 10 days of basically about 14 hours of practicing together. Yeah. So over these 4 Thursdays, all I can do is just to point out, some characteristics of these 16 stages. I don't even know if we can fully cover the 16 stages, but hopefully what it gives you is at least the first 8 stages that pertains to the body, and then after the body, what it calls feelings. Their feelings, this word Vedana, Vedana is not talking about the various types of emotions that we have. In fact, it's talking about the tones, feeling tones. So sometimes it's also translated as sensation, because it's a sensation, it's 3 types of sensations or feeling tones that arise, often in conjunction with the senses, and therefore body. Yeah? It's in conjunction with sensory experiences, arises a set of feeling tones. And those feeling tones, basically very simple. Pleasurable, painful, and neutral. With regard to that which is pleasurable, which we register as pleasurable, with regards to that, we tend to want more. With regards to what we register as painful, we tend to not want any. With regards to that which we label and experience as neutral, we tend to be indifferent. These 3 play out as what the Buddha calls the 3 poisons, which is the neutral one is related to ignorance or confusion, not knowing things as they are, but being misled by things as they appear to us to be. So a case of mistaken identity. Then out of this mistaken identity, we either like or dislike. That which is pleasurable gives rise to liking. That which is painful, we give rise to disliking. Yeah? Then from this basic, like and dislike, it turns into friends and enemy, annihilating the enemy down to 7 generations, and world peace. They all begin in such a subtle way. Part of the plot of a recent long series, right? Now I'll review how much time I spend wasting on Netflix. There's Breaking Bad, and then after that there was that's ancient already, I know. What was the other one where it
Better
was?
Call Saul.
Yeah.
Better Call Saul.
Not that sequel. No, this one I'm thinking is the money laundering, the accountant in Chicago that went to Missouri. Ozark, right? So there's a theme going on here, right? What is it? It's like good, innocent people in the most ridiculous circumstance. And then this whole drama plays out. Very soon, you become murderous, and it's like, and that's how, what the Buddha calls samsara begins. Very innocently. You almost say that, but it's normal to like and dislike. Yes, of course. But if there's no clear understanding, then it snowballs into an entertaining series for a bunch of other people, but if you're in the midst of it all, it's not so entertaining. Yeah, so the basic, right, kind of flavor of Buddhist practice pertains to wisdom. Because the basic problem that the Buddha identified is the lack of. So the main solution is the development of wisdom. Wisdom can sound like a big word. So clear seeing. And clear seeing is experiencing things as they are. Now, it doesn't mean like when you experience things as they are, you become incapable of experiencing things the way you're experiencing now. I don't want to scare you into thinking that, when you become enlightened, you become boring, That's like a terrible thing to happen. Right? Because sometimes we suspect, wait, this sounds really boring. No more anger, no more desire, no more passion, then you're like, I don't know. It doesn't mean that. It means that we become, so forget about what becoming Buddha means. Yeah? Maybe it's hard to fathom that. But what the process entails is not that you will stop, right? Not that you will stop knowing, this is good. This tastes really good. This, so-so. Right? But in the midst of knowing, this is good, you have perspective. Stable perspective. Like second nature perspective. Not you have to remind yourself that it becomes second nature or part of your nature to always have perspective in the midst of all the things that turn up and arise. It's not like after you're enlightened, there's no difference between a cat and a tiger. Yeah, kitty. Hand is gone. We're not talking about that. Yeah? So, all the things that you like can still be there. But you don't get hooked so easily. All the things that you don't like is probably still going to be there. But you don't get moved so easily. That is freedom. That is liberation. That is what the Buddha called nirvana. At least in terms that you and I can kind of wrap our heads around. And at the level that I'm able to teach. So that's about around my pay grade. You need to go to other people to get a higher a higher way of talking about, what nirvana is, Buddha is. I mean, textually, yes, I can repeat that, but I don't know what they mean. My teacher in my tradition, the founder of the lineage, she says, never teach anything that you have not experienced. Which of course I'm doing a lot of that. I'm trying to do less, Don't teach things that you have never experienced. Yeah. But if I literally do that, then this place will be kind of lonely and quiet. But I am trying to do less of that. And not just rattle off long lists of Buddha have 18 of these qualities and 26 of those qualities. Like, okay, well, inspiring, but I don't know what to do with it. Right? So what I'm saying here is I'm not claiming that I'm giving you, the most profound explanation, but I'm hoping that I'm giving you an explanation that you can relate to, And sincerely, I don't think I'm deceiving you. But I'm telling you and sharing with you what I can understand from this material. So here, right, these 16 stages, the common reference point is the experience of breathing. The experience of that process of breathing in and breathing out. So, anna and apanna in Pali. Anna is to take in. To take in what? To take in panna, breath, or prana in Sanskrit. To take in breath. As I mentioned last week, this breath, we're not talking about just coarse oxygen, or in chemical terms, right? Oxygen, and then expelling carbon dioxide. We're not just talking about that. In fact, in India, prana is life force. Life force that occurs alongside the breath that you breathe in and the breath that you let out. So there is this life force that is being drawn into the body that feeds both body and mind, and then takes out waste and releases. So apanna is to release. So just the name, just the name anapanna is ana and apanna. So anapanna, long a in between. Anapanasati. Sati is smriti. Smriti in Sanskrit, if we were to translate that, it's to remember, to not forget. So actually it's related to memory. So here, meaning turning our memory or our attention to the experience of breathing. So that is the common reference point for all 16 stages. And through these 16 stages, we gain clear understanding of body, of Vedana, those feeling tones. And it's under mind that we look into the different feelings and emotions, what we would normally call feelings. All the different states of mind. And Buddhists have developed these charts of charting out what it calls primary minds and secondary derivatives. And so if you're interested in learning particularly Buddhist psychology, there's a lot to learn there actually. How they divide and say, what makes this particular type of emotion a primary mind, and what makes this kind of emotion a a derivative, meaning it's a combination of 2 or 3 other things, so on and so forth. So there is that field of Buddhist psychology. But in terms of the 16 steps, when we relate to minds, or these mental events, it doesn't require us to know all these differences. In fact, even the body, in the case of Anapanasati, it only takes one aspect of body. In another discourse that the Buddha taught, maybe some of you are familiar with this, is called the Satipatthana, the discourse on the 4 frames of references, body. Under that topic of body, the Buddha taught many other aspects of the body. So there is another text called Kaya Gatasati, which is mindfulness of body. So a fuller version of training with mindfulness of body begins the same place as we begin here, which is begin with paying attention to breathing. Because the most basic, in a way you could say, the most basic property of the body is breath, breathing. Right? A corpse doesn't breathe. I mean, on the most obvious level, what makes a corpse, other than going to what the doctor says, right? The most obvious level, what makes a corpse is lack of breathing, right? Even when we check someone, we say, is it breathing? Is there a pulse? Right? So breathing is the most basic category, property of body. Not corpse. So there, it begins with these 4 steps here. Then in that discourse, the Buddha said, after that, now train in noticing motion. Motion. So you would stand and meditate while standing. And then walk. So then there's walking meditation. Movement. So I have taught this before. At some future point, I would like to revisit this. And I think the recordings are available on the Drekong Dhammakirti YouTube channel. So if somebody in the Zoom chat can provide the YouTube link, that will be helpful. I taught before this particular focus on a set of exercises, basically mental body-mind exercise that goes through this whole series that the Buddha gave in that discourse. So beginning first with breath, then movement. So the Buddha doesn't go into exactly how you do movement. So each teacher and tradition have kind of come up with helpful. So it can be as simple as mindfully just doing this, right? And then you're paying attention to movement, and now embodiment. So as a preliminary, to this 16 stages, sometimes, just move body, move your hands. And like in Tai Chi training, it says, you want to sensitize your body. So the way you do it is you imagine, right, this air around you as having more mass, almost like water. or you can recall, the experience of being in the pool or being in the ocean and moving your hands, right? So when you move, there's a lot more resistance. Then you say, there's less resistance here. But it's relative, right? It's a matter of how sensitized you are to it. If you're really sensitized to it, even moving through space, you are sensitized to the resistance. So then as you move, right, you become more aware of body as it is. No labeling, no mental, overlay, right? Just to be able to experience. Well, don't get carried away, We're always looking for excitement, So that then in comparison we say, oh, those Buddhists are so boring. Every time when things kind of heat up and get fun, they say, oh, stop it. Maybe it's true. I don't know. But what I do know is, again, everything that the Buddha taught in terms of training the mind is to steady the mind. Not to stir up, to create flutterings, You want to be fluttered? Go the Sufi way. You want to move? Go kirtan, I'm not saying go there and don't come back. I'm saying know yourself, You're feeling a little down? Okay, maybe not urban dharma today. Because you might be disappointed, I was down and then I got even further down. Because I went in there and he said, happiness is unreliable. So I don't like to oversell what the Buddha can give you. I like to just focus on being what the Buddha can teach us. And if you have that need, if you have a need to steady your heart and not get so frenetic and then frantic and just all over the place, the Buddha tells us how to do it, to steady the mind. Not to dull it, but to steady it, to stabilize it. So here, let's now turn our attention to the first tetrad on page 5. Breathing in long, you should discern, you should know. So this translation, which is, reasonably good, that's why I chose it. This translation, you should discern, right? I want to take you back to the words that are found in the root text. And I think this is helpful to know. So in the Pali, we are translating, you should discern. Another translation is, you should directly know. And so what is directly know? What is discern clearly? In the Pali, it's called Bhajanati. Bhajanati. Bhajanati is in contrast to Mananati. So Mananati is related to one aspect of what we just call mind, which is manas. So there is manas and there is chitta. These are two terms that you find the Buddha using. Sometimes interchangeably, But at other times when he's using these two, right, in the same discourse, he's often contrasting these two different aspects of mind. The manas is the aspect of the mind that identifies, isolates, names. The aspect of the mind that allows us to, right, when the eye looks out, right, then some choices are going on, right? So it isolates, like this object, from all other objects. Then it identifies and it labels a mouse. And somehow, right, it's a particular kind of mouse, not the one that you set traps for, or you buy from a pet store. You know what kind of mouse this is, right? So that's the job of the manas. So the mananati is the kind of knowing that relies on isolating and labeling. Pajanati, here translated as discern, right? In the other translation I'm looking at here, it says directly know. Directly know. So this speaks more to the property of the mind that the word chitta. Chitta. And chitta, in English, I think manas, even like etymologically, related to mind, manas. These are Indo-European languages, so they're related. Manas, mind. Chitta corresponds more to how we would say heart. Like warm-heartedness heart, not the pumping organ heart. Heart. And when that heart is trained, so we're not, okay, by the way, we're not saying manas good, manas bad, chitta good. Yeah, they're neutral. Yeah, we're not saying they're good or bad. It's just how these different properties of the mind operate. Right? In a way, right, to be functional in the world, you need both. But chitta pertains to heart, including, right, a jealous heart has to do with chitta. But how the heart becomes jealous, right, largely depends on information provided through manas. So there's skillful training of the manas property of mind, and there is unskillful. Unskillful simply means conducive to bringing suffering. There are skillful trainings of chitta and the unskillful operation of chitta. When chitta is refined, then, as one teacher, one Buddhist teacher suggests, he says, then maybe the word awareness better than heart. Now it's more subtle. It's just this clear quality of knowing that is not clouded anymore. So pajanati here is to know. To know, not to conceptualize. So that's, I think, important in this. You should discern. So to discern, step 1 and step 2 says you should discern. You should know directly. So how do we know directly our breath? Right? So there are some conditions necessary for knowing directly. So now we know, in contrast to knowing directly, is to conceptualize. and to label. And in fact, sometimes, because we see this instruction here, right? Breathing in long, you should discern, I am breathing in long. Breathing out long, you should discern, I am breathing out long. Then sometimes how we tend to practice this is to mentally, I'm breathing in long, I'm breathing out long. Then after a while they turn into like ordering you to breathe out long, rather than experiencing. So directly know is what we would call experiencing as well as knowing. To experience these long, calm breath and add the property of knowing. So almost like, right? One part of your mind standing in one corner and going, don't start talking. Just, I know, this is long. So it begins with long. Now, how do we get to this part? Breathing in long. You know directly that it's long. This comes from the preliminary. So don't be in a hurry to get to step 1. So go back to page 4. Always mindful. So the first 2 has to do, I call these the 4 preliminaries. The first 2 have to do with the physical surroundings. Finding the ideal physical surroundings and settling your body in a optimal kind of physical posture. The next 2 pertains to the mental side, which is bring attention to the fore. So don't let attention hide behind, run all over the place. Come here, come back here. Then attention on what? Attention on your breath, on your breathing process, on the experience of breath. So at that point, nothing yet to know, oh, it's long or short. No. At that point, it's just paying attention to your breath. And what you can do there are several different techniques that different teachers and different traditions have emphasized. So I'm going to share with you, and you can try, because everyone is different and it's not always the same. Some days one works better than the other. So as long as we know what all these methods are meant for, then it doesn't matter which method that you use. One is to count. Inhale, exhale, 1. Inhale, exhale, 2. Inhale, exhale, 3. Count to 10. Then start again, 1 to 10. Some teachers have emphasized every exhalation count. More specific. At the exhalation, 1. At the exhalation, 2. Then some have emphasized, instead of counting, more like physical sensation related to breath entering the body. So around this area where breath enters the body, or to the back of your nose. So if you become sensitized to that area, or follow breath. And obviously now a little bit of visualization is involved, But don't get too excited in the visualization and doing, mental gymnastics. Just poetically follow the progress, the movement of breath. So there is no long or short going on. It is as it is. And you're not trying to control. But at the beginning, it is helpful to deliberately take in a few in-breath and out-breath, deliberately and slowly and intentionally. Because it marks, you're creating a kind of a threshold. You're saying to yourself, you're saying to your body and mind, now I'm going to do something different with breath. And so you take a few breaths in. So there you can imagine breathing in all that which is good. And then exhale and expel all that is not needed. Your problems, your in-laws, your bills. And do a few of this. Breathe in, out, in, out. And then let it settle naturally. Yeah. Yes? Question? Question? Anyone?
What's that called in Tibetan? That practice?
No, nothing. No
don't
names.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
This is.
Just breathe in, out a few times. Just a few times. Then settle into just simply watching. Stay with the breath. Over time, what naturally happens is where we transition into the first on page 5. You will begin to breathe long and slow. That's just how the body naturally settles. And as you breathe, as you find that yourself is breathing long, that is indicating, okay, the mind is now back here and is comfortable with the body, and the body is slowly to settle into ease. And it is at that point that you should start knowing, this is long. And when this continues, right, then you transition to the next, breathing in short. Know directly that you are breathing in short. And what is this short that we're talking about here? There's two types of shortness of breath. Yeah? The one that we're more familiar with is we're gasping for breath. Right? Obviously, we're not talking about that here. There is a second kind of short breath, which is when you are completely relaxed. Your body needs less oxygen. Then naturally, breath is shorter. But not the out of breath shorter. And it's not only short, but it becomes almost not noticeable. I remember when I was 13, 12, attended my first meditation retreat. I panicked because I thought I stopped breathing. After a few hours, the first time it happened is because, when you suddenly realize, wait, breath has disappeared, and the instinctive response is panic, Actually, no, it's settled. It's like almost we don't trust the body, So the mind takes over. And the mind, so why, again, right? I was going to say this, I forgot. Why the Buddha starts with body is because the body is easier to work with, and the body does not lie. The mind is constantly lying. Body does not lie. You can say, oh no, I wasn't affected. But your body and your muscles say, yeah, right. And it registers everything. And that's the nervous system that we're talking about. That's the subtle elements that are being disturbed. They don't lie. We can talk ourselves into, I'm fine. And a body worker, a good one, One touch of the body can say, you are really tense. Like, no, I'm good. Sure. So sometimes it's also good, to go get body work. You can come at it from the body side, or you can come at it at the mind side. And see it as a multi, kind of directional. So sometimes, for example, when you are like really angry, and it's hard to apply the mind teachings on why not to get angry, then one technique is to step back and say, physically, what's going on? Put all the stories aside. Justified anger, unjustified anger, righteous anger, stupid anger, vindictive anger, right, wrong. Put all of that aside. Just physically, what is going on? First thing you're going to notice is breath. So that breath is not comfortable. So now use some force and say, I'm going to breathe differently now. Because there's a side of your mind that says this is bad, right? This rage is not good. And so then you want to intervene, you can intervene by, first, what's the quality of your breath? Jagged, rough, short, shallow. Do the opposite. Even loudly. Do that. Do that a few times, right? Then other things. What else is going on when you're gripped by rage?
Muscles.
All the muscles, right? Tense up. I have this pair of mallets. They are cloth mallets meant for big gongs. I ended up with a pair of them. Oh, really great. No, not medieval Catholicism. Yeah, not Opus Dei in modern times. Not whipping yourself, but using the mallet, to just get these muscles to relax. Then you find that your stomach muscles are pulling in, right? That's when you need to lay down on the ground and breathe into the muscles, And when you start doing that, right, the rage subsides. The story may still continue and provoke, right? But you intervene first with the body. Then it's easier to reason with the mind. So there are many ways, It's not a one method cures everything. Right? So when we know how body and mind is related, then we can put to good use, right? So anyway, here, the short is when your body and mind is really at ease, then breath becomes very subtle. Short. You don't need much oxygen at all. Yes?
In the translation of those two words, long and short,
Uh-huh.
is that the most
Literal.
that's
That's the literal, long and short. But what's implied is, deep. And short is not shallow, but time short. You don't need much breath anymore. This is not very scientific at all, but I can share with you. 7, 8 years ago, I did a sleep test because my doctor said, you should go. And doctor was saying, looking at all your lifestyle and everything, it doesn't explain, some of the issues you're facing. And so I did a sleep test. The sleep test says that I have a very strong apnea, right? But I don't have the symptoms. So that's not like what was wrong with the body. I mean, in a way, it's just in the process of trying to figure out. And then, of course, I changed my diet and this and that. But the apnea side, I think, was never solved. Okay? So even doctors don't understand what's going on. Of course, they didn't sign me up for any kind of studies. So superficially, anecdotally, in theory, right? In the night, not in theory, but it's registering. This cannot breathe, right? Regularly and properly. But I don't have the symptoms. I'm not making any claims, but I think the meditation, that I generally need less oxygen. Unless when I'm stressed, then, of course, then the apnea will have then the symptoms come. So I refuse to have a machine and all of that, and flirting with death. Yeah, so if next week you're like, Hanlai dropped dead, then you're like, well, we know why. He refused to have a machine. Please don't stop using your machine if you use one. It's a big disclaimer, okay? This is not some magic faith healing business here. But I do believe it's because as long as things are fine, I generally need less oxygen. And so even the oxygen is interrupted, in sleep where you need it, it's not showing up in the usual symptoms. So some of the people at the center, when I told them, jokingly or maybe not jokingly, they're like, so with apnea, you have this level of energy? Let's not fix that problem because it'll drive the rest of us insane. If you don't have apnea, we are going to run away from this place. Yeah, so here, over time, and over time need not be like 5 years down the road. Yeah? It's you can go do all 4 of these stages in one session. What that means is, so there is no deliberate effort to make it to relax, right?
Relax on it.
Yeah, you can't yell at yourself to relax. But there is in the background some effort. That's necessary. Even though the word is not here to say, train. Yeah. Even though, I think it's fine. I'll just be loud or louder. So even though there's no make sure you relax. But some intention should be, okay, let go, let go, let go. The more you let go, even, noble thoughts like loving all beings, loving every creature. For this purpose, for now, just quiet everything. Yeah. Then you see that your breath becomes short in a satisfying way. Then, you see, each of these steps, there is a key kind of verb which I've put in italics. The first two pertains to knowing or discerning. The third pertains to train. So what is going on here when the Buddha uses this verb train? Now it's something more active. Train yourself to experience the entire body when you breathe in. This entire body can mean breath as an entire body, meaning the completeness of breathing in and breathing out, entire body. It can also mean, as in both meanings we can work with, entire body. Not just entire body from top of the head down to the soles of your feet, but entire meaning the nervous system, the subtle body, the emotional body, mental emotional body, physical body, the energetic body. Experience all of that. So now it's taking the preliminary part, where we did actually today, started with that, kind of making those subtle links and understanding the links between those elements that build up this body and how those elements affect mental states, mental qualities, both positive qualities, negative qualities, becoming attuned to that, and now more deliberately you experience the whole package, so to say. Still maintaining breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. The fourth one, you train yourself with now doing what? Now, again, some effort is in there. Saying calming bodily fabrication. Now, before you can calm bodily fabrication, you have to notice bodily fabrication. And that's 3.2. 3, when it says experience the entire body, then from there eventually you want to turn your attention to the composite nature of this body as a process. So the comparison might be, the analogy might be something like, first you're noticing that there's a vehicle, there's a car. Then you're noticing that when the car works as a car, there are all these parts, working. And when all these parts are working, there's a lot of heat generated. That's why you need a good coolant system. Otherwise, the car explodes. Same with this body. So the next step, step 4, calming bodily fabrications, is cooling down the body. You say, how do I do that? Through breath. And through understanding that, again, breath is not just what you pull in, but the vital energy, the chi, the prana, this life force, Now it's hard to really tell you what it is, but we all know. And you say, I don't know. Then pay attention to breath. Outside the context of a formal session of meditating throughout your day, give yourself, so sort of homework for this week. Last week's homework is feel body. This week's homework is tune into your breath. Figure out how you do it through the day. Tune into your breath. Just a few moments, And what I mean by tune into the breath is start noticing, Start noticing. Now here, it's not just any breath. When you tune in, you say, okay, now I'm going to do my homework. Tune in, right? Then you take a slow, steady, deliberate breath. And as you're breathing in, pay attention to how it feels. Physically and mental, emotionally. Somewhere in between there, that's the chi. That's the prana. That's the life vitality. That's what's feeding the cells. Giving energy to the cells. So many times throughout the day, it takes only one half a minute. Do it only half a minute. Then you get more and more acquainted with breath. Then when you know more about the qualities of breathing, then step 4, calming bodily fabrications, becomes possible. Any questions, comments? We have reached 9:03.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
What are some of the fabrications that could be calmed? Like an example of some specific sensation in the body, is that what you mean?
Yes, simply the body is working, all the processes that is going on. And so what needs to be calm? Well, what we today say, inflammation. And inflammation is in part caused by what? Not just the things you eat, of course, but also caused by
Cortisol.
Friction.
stress, what we call stress, friction, right? Where does stress and friction arise?
Mental.
Mind. Mental friction. Yeah. It transfers to the body. And then the body acts on the mind. So these are not two things. They are two ends of a spectrum. So these kinds of fabrications. to fabricate. That means it's busy. So as simple as saying, it's okay. Don't be so busy. Even doing that helps if you mean it. There's a phrase in Thailand, sabai sabai. Sabai. Which sort of translates to just chill. It's like, just chill, everything's fine, relax. Yeah. Thai people use this a lot, sabai, sabai. Just, chill. Tranquilo, tranquilo. Just chill, Relinquish. Let it slide off. It's very hard, when things get very... Don't wait until it has built up to a point that where you go, sabai, sabai. It's going to be rather challenging, once it gets to that point. But when, things are starting to agitate, sabai, sabai. Do I really need to fix it? Like whatever problem, do I really need to fix it? Is it so important that I fix it now? Yeah. Well, that's part of like our society, right? It says you have to fix it, and you have to fix it now.
Can you even fix it all the time?
Yeah. Well, we are brought up to believe that we can. Yes. That's a good American upbringing. If there's a problem, we can fix it. There's a lot to be said about that, like all the things that have been achieved. I'm not the one that says, I'm not the kind that says, okay, just leave everything behind and go into the forest. Yes, I'm building a forest monastery. But, I have nothing against, per se, all the advances that we have, but we need to have perspective. Yeah, what are we giving up in the name of convenience? What are we giving up? So one lesson, to learn from the Amish. We think that, not to, romanticize, every society, every culture, subculture, they have their issues, they have their problems, right? But one of the things about the Amish is that we tend to think that, the Amish has like a set of rules, Yes, of course, there's a basic set of rules, but a lot of things that we think are written in stone, like they cannot use technology and this and that, right? Actually, from my understanding, it's not that they have those written in stone. It's more that every local community of Amish families, through consensus, would agree on, okay, this new technology that is available now, do we use it or do we not use it? And how they decide on do we use it or do we not use it is based on, I think there's two-pointed criteria. When we use this, will this take us away from each other and take us away from God? If yes, no matter how convenient, we do not use it. So they don't use phones. Why? We all know why now. just text me. We're no longer three-dimensional beings. We are just random words that blah, 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 blah. I'm one of the biggest offenders. You know, I just over there, and then they back, you know. We're not in the same space. We're not breathing the same air. And why do we feel disconnected, isolated? Because it's so convenient. So watch out for convenience, including Dharma. Watch out for convenience. It's convenient to just click. Stay in your own room, in your own house, you know. Then you don't know how to relate to real human beings. Just text me. You want to yell at me? Just text me. You want to send your love? Just text me. And what is a text? A text is just words. You know? It's just words. And that word is not even written anywhere. In text we trust, you know. So evolved. Fabrications. Don't get me wrong, you know. Sometimes you need, right? Where is that line? Yeah? Perspective. Back to my point. I'm not advocating that you throw everything out. All the things that you don't like, throw out. All the things that you like, you keep, right? No, all that will still happen. You will still have likes and dislikes. But perspective in the midst of likes and dislike. In the midst of convenience and inconvenience. In the midst of birth and death. Perspective. But that doesn't promise eternal life. Buddha guarantees birth and death. He says those are inevitable. We will come, we have come, we will go. In between this and that. Having or not having perspective makes all the difference. So the big word is wisdom. Sometimes even capitalized W. Yeah, so let us end with the dedication, coming one full circle at the very end on page 9. By this merit may I achieve the all-knowing state. May all who wander on the waves of birth, old age, sickness and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating enemies of faults and delusions. Just as heroic Manjushri knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra as well, so too will I follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all the virtues. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise, where it is born, may it not decline, ever increase higher and higher. May the life of the teachers, glory of the teachings be firm. May this world be filled with holders of the teachings. May the fortunes possessed the factors of the teachings increase. May all be auspicious so that the teachings remain perpetually. Thank you for coming out tonight. Be careful with the winds tomorrow. They say lots of winds. Outer winds, inner winds. Ta-ta, all of you out there. The miracle of technology.
Thank you.